G'day and welcome to my hobby room in Australia. Can you tell by the accent? Now look, it's 2026 January and I promised John that this kit that he sent me last year for free, lovely guy, I would build it. This is the Airfix Great Western and it is a vintage classic version. Yeah, super kit. I reviewed it, I had a good look at it and I said, is it great? And it is great. So after this video, there'll be a link. Go and watch that one. But I'm now going to go through a breakdown of all the things I'm going to do with this kit, show you the 3D parts I've printed, and discuss the way forward and all the tips and tricks that I'm going to apply to this build to make it great. Roll the music. Starting the build. Now, I like to plan everything ahead, or at least get an idea where I'm going. I don't just blindly follow the instructions because often you can end up painting yourself into a corner. Literally, because with a ship, you need to paint as you go and then assemble. So you need to make sure things that are going to go inside have already been painted, because no point then getting to that part, you've got to glue everything together and you go, oh dear, I can't, because that's got to be, you've got to work out the paint order. So let's have a look. Now, one of the first things I do is I look at the paint scheme. Now, Airfix has provided a really nice colour diagram here, and generally speaking, this is pretty correct, it should be. They usually do quite a good job, but you can always go further. And in my research, I found this. That's a little prettier, in my opinion. There's a nice white sort of section above the paddle, right? The top part of the stanchion there that sits over the paddle, the cover to it. That is white. And that is backed up with this drawing, which is the mirror from April the 21st, 1838. And their drawing shows the same thing. It has the white on the top of the paddle. And that's rather nice. So that scheme is repeated. And again here, this looks like a photo, although I think it's actually a drawing because it's very much like that colour one, the colour painting we saw. But it sort of looks like it could have been a photo. It's so hard to tell. Photos back then were pretty grainy and horrible like this. So maybe it was a photo. And if that's the case, definitive proof. But anyhow, there's more. I mean, there's lots of photos I found and lots of information that prove that this was a colour scheme. It's not just made up by someone. So we can do that, which I think will be much more fun. So what would the interior look like? Well, luckily, we have the Great Eastern. Not the Great Western, the Great Eastern. Now, admittedly, the Great Eastern is a great big huge ship. I know before you start getting all excited going, hang on, Harry, the Great Eastern's like, this has got 6 masts, and yeah, sure. But they're both Brunel designs. Great Western sure is the shorter and the early one, but indicative of the period, there would have been basically a set of rules to how things were coloured. Even though it's a museum ship now and they tend to be a little bit inaccurate, I think it hasn't been that long that we can look at the colours used in this photo and extrapolate and say, that's probably how things would have been painted on the deck of our Great Westerns. Okay, that gives us a lot of clues as to how things would be. Now, the sails, well, yeah, you know how I feel about those. If I'm going to put sails on this, they will be cloth. We'll get to that. Now the deck. The deck, I was in two minds about this. There's two ways we can go with the deck. We can paint it beige and then I can do a little wood sort of effects with Posca pens and everything and then put salt layers over and all that. And it's a lot of work, but it's doable. It's doable. And I'd have to, trouble is, all the little lockers here and everything have been pre-moulded on, which is annoying. So then they'll all have to be masked out and hand painted. That is a pain. Now one way to get around this is spray the whole thing beige, spray the colours that are supposed to be, and as far as I can tell from that photo, is that it would be a beigey colour but then white on top. So then paint the white on top, which would be easy enough to do, okay? And then put in a wood veneer deck. Yeah. Now it sounds tricky, but it's not. I've done it many times on other ships, and you just follow the bouncing ball and put the planks in. How do you work out what size you need? Because you can get these in all different widths and sizes. So how do we work out what size wood planks to put on this thing? That's pretty easy. Assume a 10-inch wide plank. That's pretty standard for around that period. Most of the sailing ships had that, okay? So using a calculator, in this case I've got an iPhone with one in, 10 inches, right, I like to work in millimetres, so multiply by 25.41. That gives me 254.1 millimetres. Okay, great. Now, I want that in 1/180 scale. That's what the scale of this kit is. So, divided by 180, and I get 1.4 with a little bit of change. Now, there's another way you could do it. You could go, what did Airfix do? Did Airfix get it right? Got my little rule here, and I measured from there to the edge plank there, and it was 2 centimetres, and I measured there were 14 planks. So I've got 2 centimetres, which is 20 millimetres, and I know there's 14 of them, divided by 14. And I get 1.4 and a little bit of change. So, consistently, 1.4 seems to be a magic number. And you can buy, I forget where the label says it, but these are 1.4 millimetre planks. So they are going to be perfect for this scale. So there you go. I mean, you can just eyeball it and go, yeah, look about right. I mean, they are getting harder to find, these veneer little individual planks, because you literally peel each one off. So you can do any kind of planking layout at all. You don't have to do this one off, one on, one off, one off stagger. I usually like to do like a bit of a 3 or 5 stagger where they kind of stagger through and they're kind of a bit more random. So we can do that. Now, they will fit around all the little bits and pieces and act as a mask to mask out all the edges that I would find a lot of difficulty in trying to paint with a brush if I painted up the whole deck. So that solves a lot of problems for me. I don't have to do all that masking. I would rather plank than mask. Now, the rat lines. Well, I did have a request, so I made a rat hub. This sits underneath the shrouds, and it's got all the rat lines, horizontal rat lines there, rigged across. So you just push it in, away you go. But it is tiny and it is fiddly, and then, oh look, it's a lot of hard work. I mean, you probably could use the dead eyes in the kit doing it this way, and that would work, so that is doable. So you can have one of these if you like. That might work, because the idea is you put it in and then you glue, but it is so little. It really is. So, no. Instead, I had already promised, and I had already designed and printed out rat lines ready to go. Okay, these are 3D printed rat lines. So they are all to scale, really easy. Already have all the shrouds tied and the loops there for the dead eyes. And I've got tiny little 2.5mm dead eyes that I 3D printed as well, but they're in a lighter colour, more a wood colour, and they just click in there. But I will show how that's done in another video. These rat lines are designed to fit exactly. You just literally click them in. Once you've got the dead eyes in there, glued in, you just click these into place and they should just sit up against the mast. So we shall see, we shall see. Now, our hull halves are all here in some bubble wrap. Oh, nice big balls. Yes, yes, we can have a lot of fun here. Pop, 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 pop. Do they make pop? No, they just hiss. Well, that's no fun. You don't get any fun out of that useless shit. Right, hull halves. I remember from doing the dry fit in the kit review that they go together reasonably well. Biggest problem was the deck was kind of wonky and walky, so we've got to work on that. Now, this is where that paddle goes. So if I'm going with this colour scheme, this is all black, and that'll be black, but the beauty is the bits that go above this are going to be white. So let's have a look at those and see how I'll break down my colour sort of list and what will go where, you know, chicken and egg stuff. What do I do first, what do I do second, that sort of thing. Now I've got all the parts out so I can have a look, and this is that little piece. See, it sits there nicely just below. There's a little strake line there, so that sits on there. Now on the other side of it, because it's open there, is this part. So this part basically does the inboard cover of that. And it has these little covers here, which are going to go over like so. So when it comes to painting, if I follow my colour scheme, all of this will be white to that straight line. This bottom section here, that could be black or white, I'm not quite sure at the moment, but this back part here is all white, and the top of it will match this, will be all white. So that makes it actually a very easy colour scheme to do because you're literally going on the edges of panels. That's going to be all white. That will be all white because it's internal. And in fact, usually the gunnels and all the inside of a passenger ship of this period is all white, or slightly off-white. And then really all I need here is that is going to be black. Those edges and that top are probably black as well. So that's going to be fairly easy to do. Paint this all white, then just basically mask it out, and then paint these black. Going to be. So that's quite good. Now, looking at some other parts, the stand. Look, it does its job. It's an Airfix stand, but we can do better. And you know how, if you've watched my builds, I like to use the brass pedestals, right? And they're expensive, $20, $30, $40. These probably cost me 50 cents. Honestly, that cost time. I had to design them. They're 3D printed. So I put them on a 3D printer this morning. Probably took about half an hour just to knock up the thing. I measured up the ones I've got on the Warspite and I just copied the idea. Made the shapes up. So it's not hard when you know how to do it. You literally only you design half. You draw like a cross section of half, right? So you just design all that. Once you've got that done, put it in the thing, you just tell it to rotate it all the way around. And then it creates the 3D object. And then you bung a hole down it. Because, you've got to have a hole. So that's where a screw will go in from the top, from the hull, and a screw here from my wooden base. So I'll be able to put this on a nice wooden base, and I can sand these up and spray them in brass. And won't that look spiffy? Now another part that needs thinking about is this. H for Houdini, sort of. This goes on top of these guys, right? And it is the walk around, so that you can get from one set of paddles to the other, and it's just a big sort of gangway area, okay? Now normally you wouldn't have nothing on the edges because your sailor's going to fall off. I mean, a good swell, a good wind, a ship doing that, splash. You don't want that, especially as you had passengers. This thing had, the lay people who didn't have their sea legs. So they'd be falling into the water too. So this would have railings. So I'm going to look at 3D printing those. Haven't done them today. I'll sort of as I get closer, because I've found drawings and plans of the ship, and they show railings on the side. Now here at the stern of the ship is this area. We had a lot of fun naming it, and somebody eventually said to me it's called a wheelhouse. There's this. It sits up here on top of some windows, right? Which I think they're kind of solid in the kit, but I might be able to basically do something with acetate. And then it has plastic railings that go all the way around. And these railings are very thick. And they're flashy and they're horrible, and I just don't like them at all. There's don't know if it's supposed to have a little dent in it there, but it's a moulding sort of lump. They're not good. They really are not good. So it really wouldn't be that hard for me to 3D print these curves, because it's a whole series of curves, right? So I'll 3D print the rail and probably make it a bit thinner than that. And then as far as the posts go, well, I could use brass wire for that and they would look a lot better. So there's that. I can do that. Then for along the side of the ship, there'll be just a kind of railing that will be over the H. So there'll just be a very simple 2-rung railing that would sit all the way along here. So I could just design some, print up a whole lot of it, and it'll be bendy enough that I can fit it to the side of the hull. And it'll be an easy, just pop it in. Easy as that. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, Dick's your best hand friend. There are other parts like the ship's boats that need work, but they're almost like little models themselves. So I would probably do at least some scoring along the line here on the side, to be the clinker sort of build that they had, and do something with them there. I don't know. And here's the tops. Well, they're quite nice. At least that part's quite good. So there's a bit of work I could do. So I won't worry about those for the moment. That's something that'll be in a future video. But while I'm painting the black on the hull, I probably would like to look at doing the funnels, because that's another black thing. So this is what I would do. I would look at the paint guide, and even though I'm changing things a little bit, right, I'll see what colours things need to be. And I don't know whether these would actually have black bottoms. I'm going to do white on mine because it's a civilian ship and they would usually have nice white bottoms. Yes, we'll see. And there you see how thick they are. When you look at all the photos and the drawings, you never see this big chunky bit on top here. You never see it. It almost looks like the whole ship is just flat, but then if you look closely, there is just the rise here at the stern. But this whole railing here should be a lot thinner, and not Mr. Chunky City here. It should be very, very, very thin. But we can fix that. 3D printing the pieces and then doing the post with wire, really easy. The skylights, I assume that's what they are, because why would you make them that colour if they weren't? Now, although they use them here as well on top of some of the lockers here, although no, that's more like a skylight. If they're skylights, and I'll try and find out, I might try and get some acetate, or I can 3D print some clear. I've got some clear filament, but it doesn't come out very clear. You can't quite see through it. But that might be good for this, because we don't really want to see into the nothingness below. They'll be very misty and opaque, but they will be transparent or translucent. So there's that. So there's lots of things I can improve with 3D. And I will put a page up with all the STL files, like these plinths and the railings and anything that I do to improve this model. And if you've got a 3D printer, you can print them out, or I can do it for you, but then I'm going to charge you money to post it. So it'll probably cost more in the posting than you to go out and buy your own 3D printer, you tight-ass bastards. Right. All right. Well, look. That is the plan, but there's an elephant in the room that I haven't talked about. The lower hull is copper. Now, I did some research on this, and these plates on here, they work out in scale to about 2mm by 7mm each little plate. And luckily I found this. This is copper nail tape. If you'd seen some of my other videos, like the Greek warship and the Varag, I had used this nail tape, which is for fingernails, for doing fingernails, and it's an adhesive, sort of very thin tape. It's absolutely microns thin, but you can use it to create relief and detail on things. So it will work perfectly, I believe, on the side of my hull, and I hope to have that in this video. It's going to be the first thing that I did, but no, it hasn't turned up. So although I will paint this all black to start with, I will then start adding, hopefully in the next video, this copper nail tape. Now, unfortunately, that's 1mm wide, but that's all right. I can just run 2 runs and then measure every 7mm and cut a vertical line, and then do my next one and stagger every 7mm a vertical line. And I should be able to build up some very realistic looking and true to colour copper plating. And yes, we'll weather it and put a little bit of green on there for all the bloody, porpoise snot and bloody shark poo that's in the water. I know. You'll go, it's not that shiny. It wouldn't be. It's a model. It's a model. Get over it. Well, there you go. What do you think? I think it's going to turn out really good. In fact, it's going to be great. Yes, it's going to be a great Western. So thank you very much, John, for sending me the kit. I am stoked, and I've got so many ideas, and there's so much possibility with this kit. We can just take it that little bit further. A nice actual copper-plated hull, some decent railings around the thing, the little spiffier bloody paint scheme, all of that. Might even think of something to do with the sails later on. We can do some nice cloth sails, even if I have them furled. They'll still look a lot better than those horrible plastic ones in the kit. But that's what you get. That's what it is. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I didn't actually sort of build anything, but you can see where I'm going. And the planning is an important part of any model, right? So knowing what you're going to do and working out the colours you're going to use and having that way forward, that then makes it so much easier when you actually sit down and start gluing it together. Because I'm going to jump around the instructions a little bit, because as you can see, I want to paint some parts early, do other things later, all that sort of thing. So hopefully in the videos that will follow this, you'll see my method of working my way through the kit and getting it together in the easiest way, so that nothing, you don't paint yourself into a corner, basically. That's all I'm trying to say. 600 words to say that, Harry Denny. This is why we say there's extra waffle in every one of my videos, because that's how it goes. You have a job to do? Yes, it's not a hard one, not at all. You hit these buttons, and it is Great Western Paddle Chute. Well, it's technically 4 words, but hit those buttons. And look, if you want to see more videos and help me out so I can feed Bass the cat, then buy me a curry. That'll be really good. Just go down there. There's no bloody contracts or anything. You just pay as little as you want. I think it's about $3 Australian, which is $2 US or something. Or it's worth nothing these days. The exchange rate. Who knows? Who knows? Bass the cat again has napped through this entire video. She just hasn't turned up, but that doesn't matter. This is just one about the Great Western, and a lot of you are just interested in ships. I don't know, you're interested in cats. Let me know. You want to see more of Bask? Let me know. All right, it's goodbye from Australia, And it's Huru from Harry Houdini. Basically, the neighbours shut up. They've been running bloody power tools all day, and I've been having to yell into the microphone to try and drown out the sound of all the... Might as well be living in the city. Oh, I am. See ya.